And Tessa. Okay, good morning. I'm Faisal Khan. I am the chair of the chair of the International Relations Department here at HWS. And with us is one of my students, Carling, who is actually both econ and IR double major.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us via Zoom today. Before we get started, I'd ask that everyone keep their microphones on mute. The session is being recorded, and we would like to limit extra noise as much as possible. Throughout the session, if you have any questions, you can submit them via chat feature, and we will answer them later in the session. So, my name is Carling Landesh, and I'm a junior at Hobart & William Smith from Sarasota, Florida. I am an economics and international relations double major with a minor in Latin American studies. I have had the great opportunity to study abroad in Mendoza, Argentina 2 falls ago in fall of 2018. On campus, over the course of my time at HWS, I have done quite a few things, whether it be working in the Office of Admissions. I've been involved in a few different community service clubs. I've been a tutor with our community service office, and a few other things. I work in different offices on campus as well. So I'm here today with my advisor, professors of economics and chair of the International Relations Program, Faisal Khan. Professor Khan, can you tell us a little bit about your own background and any recent research or project that you've been working on?
My own background, well, as you can probably tell, I am not from the US originally. I'm from Pakistan, but by this point I've been in the US probably 3/4 of my life. So I'm more, kind of quote unquote American than I am a Pakistani. I was undergrad. I was a poli-sci econ double major. Then I went back to Pakistan, worked there for about 3.5, 4 years. Worked in both the corporate banking. Then I worked as the field economist for a very large rural development NGO, and then went to USC for a grad school. I did my PhD there, and I've been at the colleges since the fall of 2000. And it really doesn't seem like it's been that long, but I did 20+ years, yeah. I have been the chair of the economics department also. I am now the chair of IR. I also have a joint appointment, a concurrent appointment, excuse me, with the Asian Studies, because most of my work has to do with Pakistan. My first book was published a couple of years ago, and it sort of draws upon my experience working in the banking sector of Pakistan, and deals with Islamic banking and finance. Now, most people don't know much about Islamic banking other than it's interest-free banking, but it's actually $1 trillion business worldwide. Not that big here in the U.S. for very obvious reasons, but and I'm currently working on my kind of second book, which also has to do with Pakistan and that has to do with the impact of the corruption on Pakistan's economic growth and development. And I could probably go on for the next half an hour or so, but I'll end this here. Unfortunately, Carling will tell you that I can go on, as I just did. Sorry.
Every class, but it's good. He has great stories. So I've had the great fortune of partnering with you throughout my time at HWS, taking several of your courses and building our advisor-advisee relationship. Can you explain a bit more of the ways in which students and faculty might collaborate in the International Relations Department?
Oh, sure, absolutely. I can give you the perfect example of that, this summer. One of my students, she's from Pakistan, Saima Mashuri, and she's going to be my research assistant this summer, and she is going to be doing both archival research, and she is also going to be carrying out a couple of in-person interviews for me. Given the travel situation and everything else, I was planning on going to Pakistan this the first part of the summer, but well, the way things stand, no one knows who'll be doing what when. So she is going to be doing that. She is going to be doing that work for me, and this is going to be extremely, extremely important for the for the book. Both the archival research and interviewing people. So and I've had other students that I've worked with in the past, mainly as research assistants. I can go into more details, but we at HWS try very, very hard to make sure that that our students are fully incorporated into not just the teaching side. Obviously, you need students if you're going to teach, but the research side also, and that helps students get a feel for what it's going to be like when they're going to be in grad school. Yes, very obviously, you've been doing research all through high school, right? Probably before that. But there is a qualitative step upwards in the expectations, and working with the professor, helping him or her with their research helps to prepare students if they're going to go to grad school. Certainly.
No, that's
Sorry.
well, I totally understand that. My coursework at HWS helped me develop an interest in the intersections of policy, US government, economics, education, and poverty alleviation, and has even led me to pursue certain internships and service work. Could you explain the curriculum a bit and the types of courses and tracks that international relations students might take?
Okay, sure. We have an extremely broad very, very diverse, IR curriculum. That being said, right, the way that it is structured, there is a core group of courses that all sort of IR students have to take, and then depending upon what their kind of interests are, they can branch off. So the core group of courses would be courses like Poli-Sci 140 Comparative Politics, right, to Poli-Sci 180 Intro to IR, which is the foundational course, right? Econ 160, Principles of Economics, and Econ 240 International Trade, right? Because you cannot really talk about international relations unless you also bring in economics. Now, many students think that but I'm not interested in finance. I'm not interested in the trade patterns, right? What I care about are I don't know, human rights, right? Or security studies or terrorism. Yes, absolutely. But if you don't have a solid grasp of economics, right, you aren't going to be able to fully understand everything that is going on, even though it may look like, well, this is not economics. Well, finance, accounting, economics, trade, all mesh in together. Now, once you have taken these core courses, right, Poli-Sci courses, econ courses, and you have to take a 100 or a 200 level kind of history course, and you have to take a anthro-soc or social course, right? So you have this extremely kind of well-rounded, very, very grounded foundation, right? So then, even though you may be choosing to specialize in human rights, right? You have the broad background you need to understand, well, how does the economy or how do trade relations, etc., play into the human rights aspect of things. Then you will be going on to choose your field of, choose your field of specialization within IR, and that can be one of several different thematic tracks. So it might be something like transnational issues and cooperation. Might be in a politics, culture, identity track. Might be the political economy track, right? And so then you will take one keystone course from a list of usually between 4 to 6 in that, right? And that keystone course is your sort of foundational grounding course in that field. Then you will be discussing with your advisor, well, what what exactly that you're working on in that your subfield, and then you and your advisor will then choose your next two courses right in that. Now, we also have a 4-semester kind of language requirement, right? So if you're doing international relations, you kind of need to speak another language other than English. And we have a lot of students taking, French, Spanish, Chinese. We have some taking, lesser known languages also, in that. And now, what if you've had a heck of a lot of, Spanish in high school, right? Are we going to force you to take, Spanish 1, Spanish 2, Spanish 3, and 4? No, of course not, right? So based upon, where you'd place in the placement test, right? You might well be taking extremely advanced, Spanish courses in that, right? But the minimum is that you would have to have, up through the 4th semester of a modern foreign language. And you also need to have at least 3 courses outside the US, right? So obviously, if you're looking at, US, foreign policy, right? You may say, but my field, within IR is the US foreign policy. Because it is international relations, you do have to have a much broader exposure outside of that. And if you have more specific questions, I will be happy to go on in more detail. Finally, the last course you will take, usually you're the senior year, will be the IR capstone seminar. And the point of that is to bring in everything that you have sort of been doing over the last 2 or 3 years into one culminating foundational experience. Oh, and I almost forgot. Before you can take the IR capstone kind of seminar, you have to take one kind of methods course. If you're quantitatively inclined, then we would recommend a stats course. And I can see Carling making faces. She is actually quantitatively quite competent. She just doesn't think she is. Or if you are not so inclined, right? There is also qualitative research methods, right? How would you carry out research in anthropology? How would you carry out qualitative research in poli-sci? So so depending upon if you are mathematically inclined or you are qualitatively inclined, right? There is the right methods course for you.
No, thank you for that. That was really incredible explanation. As an IR major, I actually declared, I think my first year, second semester, I knew off the bat that this is what I wanted to do after taking Intro to IR. What I love most about the major, honestly, I'd say would be the fact that it's interdisciplinary. I think that being able to kind of venture off and take classes that really interest you, especially, history classes or taking a world religion class or taking poli-sci classes that maybe you wouldn't think that you were able to, I think is really the incredible part about the IR major. While some might be a little scared about the language component, it's really great, I think. And my favorite part, I guess, about the major within itself is the fact that if you do go abroad, a lot of your classes will count. When I was in Mendoza, I took a history class with one of our professors, Colby Risto, and that counted towards my history class. I took a Spanish class abroad, so obviously that counted towards my language requirement. And I was able to take classes about, the political backgrounds and economics of Argentina. So I was able to not, get courses done, but I was able to learn about my region of choice, which is Latin America and the Caribbean, when I was actually there. So it's really kind of incredible. The International Relations Department really encourages you to go abroad. I went very early in my time, and I am able to go actually to Cuba in December if it still goes on. So you're able to almost go abroad once or twice. And it's very affordable. All of my financial aid transferred over. So it's really incredible to take what you've been learning, in your courses about the world, which can seem a little odd if you're sitting in a classroom in Geneva, New York, but actually being able to experience the international aspect of your education is really kind of incredible. So I definitely recommend that if you are interested in international relations. But also on another aspect of IR, I've been fortunate enough to find internships that tie back to my coursework, including working with a nonprofit that supports education in Guatemala and with a congresswoman this summer. Are there any common, Professor Khan, are there any common themes in terms of internships, jobs, and graduate school that you see with international relations majors?
That would be hard to pick out a really kind of common theme because our students have gone on to do an extremely wide range of both internships and jobs after HWS. To the extent there would be a common theme, I would say that it would be that the majority, not all certainly, but majority of our students have gone on to either have jobs or to have done internships with the government or with NGOs, right? So we've had people do as you are doing now, right? You'll be doing the internship on the Hill, right? With the Congresswoman. Then we've had your people. Then Congress, we've had people with the U.S. State Department, we've had people with Homeland Security. In fact, one of my first advisees many years ago has been with the State Department for the last 12 years. And we've had people do various NGO internships, but we've also had people work for banks. We've had there's one young woman who is now the international representative for a major auction house. Now she was an IR major, but art history minor, and her field is, if I recall correctly, 19th century art, but I could be mistaken that 19th century English art. So she's now traveling the world, right? Going to art auctions and things. So there's a huge range of options. But as you asked about the common theme, to the extent there is one, I would say either NGOs or the government.
Yes, I totally agree. I always get the question about what do I want to do after graduation, and it's always hard to tell. There's so many different tracks that you can take after with an IR major if you're interested in continuing an international job. So my last question today before we open it up to the audience, so please remember you're more than welcome to put any questions in the chat either to the entire group or individually to Professor Khan or I. But my last question before we open it up to the audience, Professor Khan, how do you make the case for the value of a liberal arts education and an international relations major in today's society?
Well, unfortunately, as we are living through the pandemic, I think the pandemic is the biggest reason why, and a focus on IR is so important, right? Because if you're talking about the pandemic, well, by the name pandemic, it's across nations, across the world. And to have detailed knowledge of language, culture, societies, international economics, when you're trying to, let's say you're working for the U.S. government and you're trying to deal with these types of issues, right? Pandemic issues, right? How is that going to impact international trade? How is that going to impact international economic relations, right? Human rights, etc. To have a very, very narrowly focused, detailed grasp of just the public health aspect of things is not enough. You have to be able to have a much broader, much wider, much more holistic view of the issues involved. And that, I think, is the beauty of not just the HWS IR experience, but of all IR experiences, but especially ours, where you have that extremely well-grounded knowledge of the basic economics, the history aspect, the cultural aspect, and how to do research methodology analysis. And and as you can tell, I can go on for the next half an hour or so, but I'll but I'll open it up to the questions.
Yeah, definitely. So it looks like I have, thank you, Professor Khan, for all of the info. We have I see some questions from the audience have come in, so I want to get to those. The first one is international relations a popular major on campus, and are the classes hard to get into?
It is a fairly popular major. We are, the last time I looked, the 4th or the 5th largest major, I think, on campus. Are the classes hard to get into? If you are going to be registering as a first year, I will be very, very honest with you, right? You will probably not get every single one of your IR classes that you want. Will you be able to get into them in next semester or fall of your sophomore year? Absolutely. We've got multiple sections of our most popular courses, like for example, Econ 160, the Principles of Economics, Poli-Sci 140, comparative comparative politics, Poli-Sci 180, Intro to IR. Usually there are between 2 to 3 sections of each taught each year. So for your courses like Econ 160, they're usually between 4 to 6 sections of that. So if you don't get into it, this semester, you will next semester.
Yeah, speaking from personal experience, I've had the fortune of getting into most of my classes. I think that there have been very few classes that I haven't been able to get into. A lot of the intro level classes, if by chance one semester there's just 1 or 2 less than the usual, a lot of students are trying to get into that, especially first years. But as you go on in your 4 years here, getting into the higher level classes are not usually a problem. I've had quite a few incidences where I don't get into a class and then I take my second choice and I ended up loving it, such as Women in International Development, which I absolutely loved. I took an Economics of Education class, which I also loved, 2 of my favorite classes. And I just took those because I didn't get into my first choice. So a lot of times things do work out. It can be kind of scary as a first year thinking, okay, I have to take, this list of classes and I need to, take my science class and my art goal. Like, how am I going to fit this all in? Like, I remember thinking I was worried I wasn't going to be able to do all my classes in time. But it works out perfectly all the time. You just have to find a really great advisor. Professor Khan, thank you. I've been given really great advice between all of my advisors. And it's really helpful, especially during advising week when, you run by courses and they say, okay, have you taken this class yet? Or maybe you should take this class. I took a class called Youth Migrations, which studied the migration of children basically to the US, and especially we talked a lot about the southern border, and that was a recommendation from one of my advisors, and it was really incredible course. I took it purely out of interest, and it ended up being an incredible learning experience. So a lot of times your advisors will know professors and will know kind of the reputation of courses, and then they can easily recommend them if it's something you're interested in. So it's definitely really, really cool being in an interdisciplinary major, because you really get to explore a lot of different topics, which was something I was looking for in an IR major. You have the structure, but you're able to explore your other interests as well. So it looks like I have another question.
Actually, if I could just follow up on that, just for 1 second. Sometimes first years especially are extremely concerned that, well, I didn't get into this class and I want to start my IR major right away. And we'll say, look, take Soc 100, which is the prereq for all sociology courses. Take the Psych 100, which is the prereq for all Psych courses, right? So that next year, whenever you see this great 200 level, in a Psych course, right? So then you have necessary prereqs to take it, right? So if by some chance you don't get into your courses that you think you must take for the IR major, in the fall, not to worry, right? It isn't going to be just you're taking some random course which is just to which just to fill in your schedule. There are a range of courses which you should take as early as possible, so that when you're sophomore year, etc., that you want to take higher level courses in in economics, sociology, kind of psychology, etc. You have the prereqs for it.
Definitely.
Sorry, Colin, go ahead.
Oh, yes. I just got a question from one of the audience members. So the question is, do international relations majors tend to interact with cities in the United States, such as New York City, DC, while studying at HWS or after? I think I can answer that just from my perspective.
Go ahead. Absolutely.
Yeah, I knew in high school that I really wanted to do international relations. I wanted to work in DC. That was it. That was the end goal. I didn't know exactly what track, if it was going to be a public or private sector, but that's what I wanted. So I applied to a few schools in DC, didn't really work out financially. So I looked at HWS. This is a little pre-story to the question, sorry. But I saw the IR department and how flexible it was. And it was really kind of incredible, especially with our study abroad component. That was a big thing for me. And our career service office, it's hard, I'm from Florida, so I didn't know much about HWS. I didn't really grow up in New England, where a lot of people at least know about Hobart and William Smith, but I saw those three, the IR department, study abroad, and career services. They kind of came together for me, just because they do provide a lot of experiences that you wouldn't expect from a small liberal arts school in upstate New York. I know a lot about how the college search is a lot about names and what this college has done, but being able to get the liberal arts experience as well as experiences in DC, in New York City, is really kind of incredible. Like I mentioned earlier, I was able to intern with one of our professors, Professor Brian Ashdown. He's a psych professor, actually, and he's the executive director of a nonprofit, Education for the Children, that works in Guatemala for a school for children. So it literally was the exact intersection of my own professional interests, and I was able to actually do that from Geneva remotely. I looked for funding. I looked for, grants for the organization. So I was able to get that experience that actually, with that and working in offices on campus, I was actually able to secure an internship in DC for this summer. So like Professor Khan said, I'll be interning on the Hill, and that's actually made possible because of the career service office. They have a lot of connections in DC, in New York City. So we may not be in the center of things, in New York City, in DC, but we do have those connections, especially with our extensive alumni database, where they also provide funding. So I was actually part of the guaranteed internship funding program, where I was able to get a good financial package to help me with housing and food to be in DC this summer. Fingers crossed, it keeps going. It was delayed a little bit, but it's really kind of incredible that the school supports you to interact with bigger cities, whether it's interning with a nonprofit in New York City or interning internationally. They actually have this really great program with our career services that it's very specific, but there's a few different types of the program. But basically, if you're interested in working in a nonprofit in Central America or Africa, you actually will get $10,000 to go intern at a nonprofit that supports women and children. So think about that, $10,000 to go and intern in Central America or Africa for the summer, 8-10 weeks. I didn't take that opportunity. It wouldn't have worked out this summer anyway, so I guess good thing I didn't, but it's really great, and that's supported by alums. And think about it, we're at a very small school, so the application pool isn't that high. So you get these opportunities if you're looking for them, to intern internationally, to work in DC, to get that experience abroad, which I know a lot of companies that look for IR majors are definitely looking for that abroad experience, especially if you're, working in a field or with a company or someone that is helping people internationally. If you have that international experience, it's really beneficial. So all of those aspects, I know I just went on a little rant, but all of those aspects really are helpful that you wouldn't expect from a small liberal arts school. So I've been able to take advantage of a lot of different opportunities of the IR department or career services. I've studied abroad, will again, hopefully. And I think that that is really incredible. And it's something that a lot of employers after graduation are looking for. So yeah, so that's my little spiel. Can you tell I'm a tour guide? Because I can go on about all of this. But yeah, so we have another question that had come in a little earlier. What, I guess Professor Khan, you could touch on this a little bit, but what majors and minors do students often pair with international relations?
The most common one I would probably say would be either kind of poli-sci and IR or econ and IR. And that works out really, really nicely, because to major in an IR or to minor in IR, you have to have several different in econ and poli-sci classes. So that lets students in effect double dip, right? So you can count the same course for both IR and for econ, or for both IR and for poli-sci. Now there is obviously a limit as to how much double counting you can do, but the ones which work out the best are econ and poli-sci.
Yeah, I have a few friends in the international relations department that also paired up with languages, especially if you do go abroad. I know that we have language immersion programs in both France and Spain and Argentina, Costa Rica. So that, and also anthropology, I've seen a few, because it really depends kind of what you're interested in.
Right.
My major focus that I've found through taking classes is economic development. I'm actually in economic development with Professor Khan right now, at my final exam on Friday. But it's really cool once you're an upperclassman and you're taking those higher level courses, and you can really experience things that you're truly interested in and that have been kind of talked about a little bit in intro classes, but being able to learn about your passions at a higher level in greater depth is really kind of rewarding. And I feel like I'm actually, in college now, because I'm actually learning about things that I'm truly interested in and passionate about, and that I think will truly help me after graduation in my career in a year or so. But yeah, and last question, question would be, why did you choose HWS? I kind of answered that already, just about kind of what I was looking for. I kind of took a chance on HWS because I am from far away from Florida. I didn't visit until one of the admitted students days, I think like end of March in my senior year. So from what I've heard and what I saw on the website, which I think is really great, and for those students that are on right now, I think being able to look at the YouTube videos that they have put up about, different programs, different organizations and offices, but also looking at pictures, watching the virtual tours, talking to your counselors. My counselor was really helpful. She really reached out to me and kind of made my experience a little more personal than a lot of the larger universities that I was applying to. So I felt very welcome. She was texting me when I was coming to campus, and having the small liberal arts experience was really important to me, just because of the faculty to student interactions, being able to go to office hours, professors reaching out to you, asking how you are, seeing them in the hall. I have professors that I had 2 years ago in first year, and they still remember my name, which I think is really incredible because they have, hundreds of students. But yeah, it's all about the small liberal arts for me, I think, was the big selling point, being able to really get the experience rather than just be a number, I guess. I know you've probably all heard that before, but it truly is the way here. And being able to have professor-student relationships where they can write letters for you, they can get you in contact, being able to meet with the deans, gaining professional experience working in offices, or, leading clubs. It's something you're able to do here if that's what you're interested in. And I know a lot of students have really taken advantage of that. So that's my question. That's my answer to that question. If anyone has any questions, please put them in. We'll be wrapping up in a minute. Yeah, so that's about it, I think, unless someone has one question. But that looks like it's all the time that we have for today. Thank you all for joining us. If you have any further questions or you'd like to get in touch with one of us later on, we will drop our emails in the chat for you, or the Office of Admissions can also connect with you as well. Thank you so much to all of those who are watching. Thank you, everyone, for the thank yous. Thanks so much for joining us. I hope to see you all in the fall. Fingers crossed for orientation. I'll be working that, so I look forward to hopefully meeting with you. We'll put our emails in if you have any more questions kind of down the line. But thanks all.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Carly. Thank you, everyone. And I will be teaching 2 sections of Econ 160 in the fall, which is a required core course for IR. So I hope to see you in that. Thank you. Take care. Stay safe.
Oh.